They say that talking to yourself is a sign of insanity. But I think that's only true if you end up answering back. Right? Right. This is Talking to Myself, a podcast where I use self-reflection and anecdotes from my life to try to make myself a better artist, and hopefully a better person. Hopefully someone else can get some benefit from this as well, but mostly I'm just trying to avoid paying for therapy. Today on the podcast, I thought we'd talk about potential and the burden it is on you, or can be. As usual, I'll start with a little anecdote by myself. When I was 8 or 9 in school, they had a standardized test across the state. I believe it might have been across the nation. And I scored in the top 3 percentile. I've had several IQ tests around that era too that I scored above genius level. And generally, I was always in gifted classes in school and special programs and all this. Now, if you think I'm bragging about this, I'd like to also point out the fact that I have lost my keys in the trunk of a rental car. I have insulted people in public that I barely knew for no reason. I have ruined pretty much every romantic relationship I've ever been in. I've risked life and limb for ridiculously stupid things before, not just as a child. I've made reckless decisions that are far-reaching in their consequences. So if you think I'm trying to toot my own horn about being smart, I'm trying to point out that it doesn't mean anything to be smart. I was one of those kids that was always going somewhere and had all that potential, especially in art class. The teacher always used to give me different assignments, extra assignments, compared to other people. I think she was trying to groom me to be a better artist, and I appreciate that effort. I appreciate the concern. These days, I'm sure teachers are a little more beleaguered. There'd be no way in hell they could have that kind of concern. It wasn't easy then either. I can recall jumping up on an art table for some reason. I don't know why, but then immediately collapsing out from under me. Somehow avoided getting sent to the office for that. But I don't even remember why I did it, quite frankly. Just ridiculous, dumb things. And not just because I was a kid. I take stupid risks now, too. It's just, I don't think about things. But that's my point. In life, as in art, especially this time we're relating back to art now, potential is something that can be a huge weight that you have to drag behind you. The burden of that can keep you from even trying to do something. Having expectations about how it's supposed to come out or where you're supposed to end up can be crushing. I'm pretty much middle-aged now, and I'm not where I want to be. I'm not even sure where that is anymore. Directionless, meandering. If you've heard this podcast, you know exactly what I'm talking about. There's some things to remember that I'm hoping to get out of this for myself. As always, this podcast is mostly about me talking to myself, trying to coach myself through some difficulties, and hopefully get better at doing the art thing before I die of old age. Or fumes. That's another thing, too. I mix chemicals without a respirator because I'm an idiot. High IQ or not. There's a reason why very smart people don't reproduce as often. At least that's what I hear. I think it's because we can't stand each other. But that joke aside, some things I'm trying to remind myself of that I've vaguely learned, I've gleaned from this cramping, confining box that potential is. Sometimes you just need to understand and realize that you have to do what you can. There are limits to what you can do. Being aware of those can help you. And yes, you are supposed to try to push those, stretch yourself and all that. But there's also the other end of that, where if you feel like you have a limit and you don't like where the limit is, instead of pushing it, sometimes it feels easier to just not try. And that's a trap that I fall into a lot. This weekend, I'm recording the podcast Sunday night, right before bed, which is ridiculous because I release it on Mondays. Now I have a buffer already, of course, but I should have had this done 2 days ago. Why didn't I do it? I had the idea down. I didn't have a script. I don't usually have a script. Another reason I'm not that smart. But I had the idea ready a week ago or 2 weeks ago. I could have recorded this anytime. It's difficult to get moving when you have, I feel like, this expectation I give myself that something's going to be good, and when it comes out, it'll be good. People will like it, and I'll like it. It'll be worth something. But you need to realize that it doesn't really matter, the outcome, as long as you try. Try your best. Try some. Just try. So that's one point. Another point that I'd like to remember artistically is the only measure of your success is progress. Art's like a lot of things. Art's like sports or any kind of skilled activity, really. You only get better at it if you work at it. Unless something happens, like if you're an Olympic runner and you shatter your leg, you're probably not going to get better at it. That's beside the point. You're never going to get the best at it, is what I'm trying to say. Especially for something like art, there's so many factors involved and so many individual ideas and concepts and techniques and everything that people use that the reason art is unique and the artists are unique people is because their vision and the expression of that vision is impossible to duplicate. People ask me, computers are doing paintings now, are you worried? It's like, no, not at all. If they come up with a computer that can come up with weird thoughts just like mine, then that'll be a miracle in engineering, not art. Compete with yourself. If you want a measure of how well you're doing, look at how you were yesterday. If you're better than that person, then you're doing great. If you're not as good as that person, then maybe you have some more work to do. What are you doing different? What are you not doing? So don't be too hard on yourself unless you're doing poorly compared to yesterday. And if you are doing better than yesterday, good. Celebrate that a little, you know? Progress is the only measure you have of success in this. If you do a sketch every day and they keep getting worse, then something's wrong. If you do a sketch every day and they stay the same, then that's acceptable, I suppose, but you need to sort of find out where's your passion, what are you trying to do, what would you like to do, and maybe steer in that direction. Try some variety, you know? And if you do a sketch every day and they slowly get better, then hooray. Congratulations. That's as good as it's going to get. To be a little better every day is the pinnacle of success. And you have to be willing to think of it that way. You can't undertake an activity like painting or sculpting or drawing by saying, I want to make the best painting, sculpture, or drawing that people have seen. I want everyone to look at it and say, that's the best painting, drawing, sculpture I've ever seen. Because they may or may not, depending on what it is. Someone's judgment of your work is based on less than the tip of the iceberg. They have no idea what you went through to make that. They have no idea what it means to you. And I know I've said here before, they have no way of knowing that, and you need to recognize that. But that just reinforces my point. Your measure of progress is only determined by you, and it can only be measured by comparing yourself to previous. So, potential. It's like dragging a cinder block behind you all the time. Don't let anybody tell you what you should be or can be, except for you. And you can only judge that based on who you are and were and will be. This is more meandering than usual. I feel like I've not said very much here. Then again, luckily this podcast doesn't have a lot of potential yet. As always, I'd like to thank everyone for listening to me ramble on like a crazy person. I especially like to thank my patrons on Patreon. You guys are the best and most shiny people I know, and that you get to see this or hear this both a week earlier than everyone else. Hopefully that's worth it. To everyone listening, thank you for your time. Hopefully there's some tiny little pearl in all this sand that you can find that'll somehow help you. And if you make things, continue making things. I'll catch you guys next time.